What's going on, everybody? My name is Greg Peters. You are watching the Car Passion channel, and as you can see, I've been doing a little test fitting of things. We got the aluminum Garage Star pulley setup, we got the VVT actuator, we got the JDM square top manifold, well, half of it anyways. But when I do the hard installs on all this stuff, there will be video coverage, I promise. Today, I'm going to be working on a little reliability mod. One problem that I've had with both of my Turbo Miata setups are issues pertaining to the turbo mounting kit. The studs, the hardware, stretching, bending, breaking, backing out, failing in other ways. And a couple bad things can happen when that occurs. Number one, your turbo can fall off, and nobody wants their turbo to fall off. The second thing is, when you start to get looseness between the turbo and the manifold, you start leaking all the exhaust gases out, and those exhaust gases are what spool the turbo. So you've just taken a turbo that spools at 3,500, and now it's spooling at 5,900 and not making any power. Your exhaust gas gets blown out, you're inhaling all kinds of carbon monoxide. It's just a bad situation. So after dealing with these issues for so long, basically ever since I boosted my car, I decided enough is enough, and I've purchased the world's best turbo stud kit. Let me show you what I mean. What I've got here is a Trackspeed Engineering Inconel stud kit and locking hardware system. This video is not sponsored by or affiliated with Trackspeed Engineering. They just happen to make the best turbo mounting kit money can buy. Now, it is a little bit pricey. This kit's about 125 bucks, but to me it's completely worth it to never have to worry about my turbo coming loose at the track, especially on a higher horsepower setup like this. There's more heat involved, it's just more prone to happening. So the kit includes 4 Inconel studs. This is basically one of the best metals you could possibly make studs out of. Super strong, super resistant to any stresses caused by heat or tension. It also includes a little bottle of Resbond. This stuff is kind of like Loctite, except it continues working at the extreme temperatures manifolds are subjected to. This is what prevents the studs from backing out of the manifold itself, and I'm also pretty sure it could take down Superman faster than Kryptonite. Last but not least is some Stage 8 locking fasteners. I'm going to crack this thing open and show you how they work. So the stud threads into your manifold, the turbo goes onto it, the grade 8 nut goes onto the stud securing the turbo. Now, in order to prevent it from coming loose, it's got this lock on it. This gets propped up against something like the turbine housing, and then it's got a little lock ring. It goes on here. I'm not going to push it on all the way, but it locks onto the nut in that groove, holding the locking tab in place, making it impossible for the nuts to rotate. The first thing I wanted to do was just thread the studs in by hand with no Resbond, just to do a quick turbo test fit to make sure there's no weird interference issues before I commit to basically gluing those studs into the manifold. Now, I'm glad I did the test fit because I kind of made a little discovery. I put the turbo on backwards here so I can frame up this shot a little bit better. Right underneath that stud is a little bit of casting on the turbo, and that actually interferes with getting the nut threaded on. It's very difficult to thread the nut on with that little bit of casting there. So I'm going to take a Dremel to it and just barely buzz off 1 or 2 millimeters, making the install a little bit easier. Now that I know everything will fit, I'm going to do a permanent install on the studs. Step 1, shake Resbond vigorously.
2 hours later.
Now take one of the studs. You can see it's got a long side and a short side. You're going to thread 2 nuts onto the long side. Now take 2 wrenches. Lock the nuts together. You don't have to get crazy on this, but just snug them up. Make sure they're not going to go anywhere. Notice how this bottom nut is not touching the center ridge on the stud. When you torque this down, you don't want to be torquing this nut against the manifold. You want to be torquing that center ridge against the manifold. And if this nut is threaded on too far, it's possible that you'll torque this against the manifold. When you remove the nuts, the stud won't be torqued. Apply your vigorously shaken Resbond to the other threads. And torque it to 10 foot-pounds. Now you can remove the nuts. The studs are in, and the next step is to mount the turbo. Now, you remember the part of the turbine housing with the low clearance? That's the nut you've got to put on first, because you have to put the turbo in place like this and then slowly thread that nut on as the turbo moves upwards. That's really the only way to tighten it. And because the clearance is so small, there's no room to put one of the locking tabs on. So what Trackspeed recommends is to just put res bond on that back nut and then use locking tabs on the other 3. Now, of course, I'm not gonna forget my gasket. I'm gonna get the turbine housing up into place. You can see there's basically no clearance in there for that nut. Go, we're in business. These are supposed to be torqued down to 10 to 15 foot-pounds, but there's no way to really get a torque wrench on the back one, so you just kind of have to do it by feel. Remember how tight you made the studs? It's about that much, or maybe a little bit tighter. Now you want to orient all of your locks so that if the nut does come loose, it won't be able to rotate very far. So I'm gonna put mine just against the turbine housing like that, so there's no way that nut can turn counterclockwise. You can rotate the nut slightly to get the lock position you want, then just take your E-clip and get it started by hand. Give it a little tap to push it the rest of the way on. Now there's absolutely no way that nut is coming loose with the locking tab in place. Alright, well that is how you install a Trackspeed Engineering Inconel stud kit on your turbo manifold. Now I know this video was kind of short and a lot of the tasks I have left on this engine are a little bit smaller, so I'm considering covering them in one of 2 fashions. Either do shorter videos like this one and release a couple videos per week, or cover multiple tasks in single videos that would be 12 to 20 minutes long and continue on my once a week schedule. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I don't really know how I'm gonna do it yet, but I wanna make the best possible videos and the most entertaining videos for you guys. I hope you learned something in this video. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.
Back from the dead.